Hi, I'm Tom with Learn PDR Online, and today we've got a little dent job on a Citroen DS3 down at one of my local trade accounts. I've not seen the damage at all yet. They've just called me, said that they've repaired and painted the car and they're just on the stage of refitting it back to their customer, but they've spotted a small dent on the rear wheel arch of the Citroen DS3. Now, typically rear wheel arches are quite inaccessible if they can be double skinned, but I'm hoping on that Citroen, I believe from memory, that it's a single skin section across the wheel arch. So I'm going to pop down, have a look, and hopefully get behind that dent and take it out, and I'll take you along for the ride, so stay tuned. So it's quite a long dent, but I think most of it, certainly this area here, is accessible into here, and then around here it starts to hit that inner edge. So we'll see if that gives us any problems. So for this repair, I'm going to use one of my first ever dent repair bars. I'm sure a few people laugh at me when I pull this dent repair bar out. It's probably older than me. But it's just a real simple bend, and yes, an old-fashioned triangle handle, which I've just made a bad job of putting some gaffer tape on to make that a bit easier to grip. But all it is, just that bar, and it's a fairly soft round tip on the end, which hopefully you can see. But it just gives me enough leverage. I've bent it a few times as well, which I quite like being able to just adjust the bar as I go. But I am going to put a little bit of tape around the end, because although it's quite round, it can be quite easy to put some sharp high spots in it. So I'm going to use a little bit of Gorilla Tape just to cover that little end. People use things like Tesla tape and duct tape, and it just softens the blow on there, and then get behind it. And I think I'm going to use this tool pretty much to take that entire dent out, working myself along. So this is the bar, and I put a little bit of tape across the end. So this is the tape I'm going to use, this Gorilla Tape. Just to tear off a small piece, and then let's wrap it around that end. Now what that does is only give us just a couple of layers of tape, but it's much softer now to work on that end, just to really allow me to work quickly and push out a lot of that dent. So as we take a look at that dent again, I'm going to get this bar right behind the back of that, and I'm going to start from the furthest edge away here and gently bring this back towards the crease line, and then come back and start working this line here, ending up on this point. Now, despite it being quite a sunny day, it's pretty cold out here, and the panel's definitely cold to touch. So I've got a trusty hairdryer, and I'm just going to warm that panel up, just make that paint a bit more acceptable to pressure, and just reduce the risk of cracking the paint, and also making the metal a little bit easier to move and to work with. I don't know how easy it is to see on the camera, but just here we have a slight high spot, or ridge or crown, and that's just above the crease. So our crease runs across the panel this way, and right at the edge you can see where the lines pinch together, just across here to here, and that shows me on the line board that we've got a high spot, aka a ridge or a crown. So I'm going to start by tapping that down first. So now I'm going in with this tool. I'm going to use my hand as leverage, and perhaps the tyre as well. There's a few gentle pushes to start with, just to see how easy it moves, kind of test the metal out. And just get myself familiar with the pressure to use, enough pressure to push the dent without creating high spots. Now, I move my head around quite a lot, as I'm going across with the lines, and it just makes sure I'm keeping on the right track with making sure those lines read true. So it's kind of cross-referencing my work, cross-checking the work as I go. But we will still swap ends and check it properly as well. Thankfully the metal's moving quite well and quite quickly. So I've been working the dent, and as I said, I started from this end and just slowly been working that metal back out, and you can see those lines are pretty much where they need to be. And it did involve a bit of tapping her down on the ridge crown that was here, and then applying pressure underneath to reduce this dent out towards us. So I'm almost back in line there, and originally I said I was then going to swap to this back section, but I think whilst the panel's coming out well, I'm going to continue on here and just take out this dent and work the crease this way, and then by the time I get towards this edge we should have put a bit more rigidity back into the panel. I'm using a little bit more force now that I'm on this body line, swage line, but I'm able to, I've got just enough shape into the bar that I can lever off this tyre, which just makes my life a lot easier pushing with this hand. So a little bit leverage off the tyre, and we're able to really get some accurate pushes on this section here. And again, just keep moving your head around so you've got a really good idea of those lines as you work. Now, because the metal's quite soft, I'm moving quite quickly, and I'm able to really kind of push out a lot of the metal quite fast. Now I'm also using a bit of a drag-in technique on this one. It's something I rarely do, or it's fairly new to me, the type of repair when you're sort of dragging the tip across. The biggest risk in there, if done a little bit too much force, you can really put a straight line in, which is sort of near impossible, or create yourself more work in terms of a high spot. But also you can easily crack the paint when applying pressure and dragging the tool tip across. Because this is fairly open, fairly soft, and it's moving well, and I've got my tape on the end of here, what I'm doing is just getting a little bit of pressure underneath and then pulling the dent bar back towards me. Where it's a crease, it's just lifting it out as a crease rather than giving me lots of little high spots in there. So there are tools that are built better or with a set purpose for dragging and different techniques, which isn't what this is for, but just being very careful I'm using that just to kind of make sure I'm taking out a straight line and not putting lots of high spots in, creating that kind of zip effect. So really starting to make headway with this dent now. Got the crease started around here and round through the panel. Most of that is out. A little bit of finesse work to do still. And then the bit on the body line that was in. And now coming back towards this far end crease. I said I was going to try and do it all in this tool. But I just can't quite get that angle to really get in that lip. But most importantly, because this is a single skin panel, once I start putting pressure in there, it moves too much metal, and you can easily kink out this section here because you can see just how thin it is. So I'm going to switch tools. So I've decided to switch tools. I've now moved on to this hockey stick bar. Generally designed for getting inside doors and doing little door ding repairs, but it's got just the right angle to get into this arch, come this way, and then be able to get the tip right into the tip onto this this panel here, so I can really get that edge in there and do that finesse work. Now I did have a bit of tape on this to take out some of it, but I'm now going just with the bare, I mean it's not too sharp a tip, but it will give me just enough pressure to basically lift less of the metal, because I'm really worried about that arch kinking out if I apply too much pressure. So it's not quite a sharp tip, but it's a similar process using a sharp tip tool, just to kind of move a tiny bit of the dent and less of the panel overall, and hopefully that makes sense. But it just means once I'm putting pressure on it, I'm not risking pushing that panel out. Just lots of fine little detail in creating enough pressure on the low spot to push it back out again. So we're pretty much there with the dent now. That line over that body line being removed. And bring it back. Across to this back crease. Now just here, you can see I've left it slightly high, so I'm just going to tap that back in. This is why it's so important to check, cross-reference, double-check, triple-check your work. But I'm happy that the dent is out now, and it's just a case of tapping in very slightly this little high spot here. So the body shop had already repaired and painted the door, which is the damage it was in for. But after repair painting the door, they've noticed there's a slight dent or crease through that wheel arch. So rather than getting it back in and having it all repaired and painted again for that damage, they've called us out just to take that dent out with paintless dent removal. So it's great from a retail point of view, and also obviously from car sales and also car body repairs as well. So dent's out now completely. Hopefully you found the video useful and interesting. As always, please do leave your comments below with any questions, queries you have with the repairs, tools or the industry in general. And I'm Tom with Learn PDR Online. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.